Shout out to everybody here. Thank you for jumping on into the Price Report. Every single Wednesday night, we bring you a personality from somewhere in cryptocurrency, from somewhere in the blockchain that has dedicated themselves to cryptocurrency. I consider this person a crypto lifer. This channel has been amazing. I've watched this person for a long time. He has a lot of insight and data, and he's taught me a lot about low cap gems and how to find those 50Xs, 20Xs, and more. Take it away, my man, Joey Parys. How you doing, Joey? How you feeling today, man?
I'm great, Lifer. I really appreciate being here, man. And, the sun is shining. You can see the palm trees in the background. I just got off the ocean, like literally just made a video on the beach. So we're living the dream over here in Puerto Rico, man. Thanks, for having me. Really grateful for the opportunity and just to share my insights and, help educate your community. So really excited to be here. And thanks again for the intro.
Great. Mike is awesome, man. I love that S&P 7, right? You can't beat it. You can't beat it. Joey, tell us a little bit about your story. How did you get into crypto? How did you find yourself into YouTube? And are you on the beautiful island of, I don't know where you may disclose where you're at. I don't like to disclose people's locations, but where are you? If you'd like to disclose, completely up to you. And just let us know about you, man. I'm so interested in your journey.
For sure. So I started crypto 6 years ago, and I actually been in online business for like 8 to 10 years now. I started my own business, teaching people how to create online courses. And I actually went to school for education. So I have a degree in history, psychology, American government. And I had never invested anything in my life before. Like literally I'm self-made, started from zero, didn't even go to school for business or any of that. And I always wanted more just in life. I wanted to be able to be free and just do what I wanted to do. And, I had to learn all myself. So I did a lot of personal development, read books like Think and Grow Rich, The Secret, all those classics. And I started my own business. And then I found cryptocurrency 6 years ago from another friend, and we started blogging on this platform called steemit.com. It's still there today, but it's not what it was when it first got started. And I just looked at it as an opportunity to take the content I was already creating and share it and earn crypto. I thought that was the coolest thing ever. And then I started investing, because if you invested in this Steemit crypto, you then could get yourself up higher in marketing, and more people would follow you on that platform. And I had built some, social media followings and things, and, started my own business. So I kind of felt like it was very similar on the Steemit platform. In fact, I actually became one of the most followed authors, and it was earning like thousands of dollars per post at one point, which was crazy. So that kind of was my introduction. And like everyone who kind of gets introduced to crypto, I did all the mistakes, right? Like I ended up buying the absolute top of Steem, and ended up selling literally the absolute bottom. And so I think my first year or two, I actually lost $70,000. It was somewhere around 70, 80,000. So yeah, I'm not proud of that, obviously, but it was the necessary learning curve that I needed to have. Since then though, I got back into crypto investing in 2020. So I got burned, right? I kind of was like, all right, this was no fun. I'm going to kind of give it a break. But I still was dabbling around. I ended up buying Chainlink at less than a quarter, and some crazy coins that did really well in the long run. But I started back really heavy in 2020, right before the next bull run in 2021. And that's when I started my YouTube channel. And the reason why I started is because I took $10,000 and turned it into $250,000 within a week. And it was this moment of my life where I was like, all right, this was crazy. I know how to do this again though. And no one's talking about the strategy of how to actually, be the smart money in crypto. And there's a whole process and method to the madness. And that's what I kind of teach on my YouTube channel, is all these new altcoins, these new crypto projects, how to be the smart money, how to get in early to it. And it's a whole education. It truly is. But from that experience, I just learned and just kept repeating the process. And, today I'm in Puerto Rico. So you can see, the palm trees in the background. And like I said, I just got off the beach, man. So it was fantastic. And, I absolutely love it here. But, what brought me here was, first the crypto, but also just the weather. I'm from Chicago, man. So it's, should I say, I used to be from Chicago. It was freezing cold there, especially in the wintertime. So palm trees and sunshine, and I could have my cake and eat it too with my business. And I was like, this is for me. Sign me up. I'd never been to the island before. I just showed up here and then, figured it out, man. But no, that's how I got started. It's how the YouTube channel got started. One of my first videos, I'm on the beach in Puerto Rico, talking about all this stuff. And, my channel is a little bit different. It's definitely more for those who are looking to learn more about these new crypto coins. I don't talk a whole lot about Bitcoin and It's definitely more altcoin centric, but I wear the hoodie all the time here with the little Nike symbol because people love the hoodie. I don't know why. They think it's a cool logo, but this is just hodl it. And that's really like my main mentality. And what I've learned in the last 6 years is just be patient and like put your time into the market and work hard. So that's what I've done. Today I'm a cryptocurrency millionaire because of all the things that I just said. And, if you're looking at, investing in crypto and living the dream and doing that kind of thing, you can do it. You definitely can. Like there's nothing, special about me. I'm your average Joe who has no hair and a suntan. You know what I mean? So yeah, that's a little intro. That's kind of how I got started, and I appreciate you letting me share.
Dude, that's amazing. I watched you. I started my channel in 2019, September of 2019. So around the same time, I always wonder how people explode because like I'm still at 42 and I've gone every single day straight for like 70, 50 days. But also it's like a live stream channel, and now we're starting to create more content. Little secret about me, I just recently became a crypto millionaire, literally like this week. Like I finally breached into that status for the first time in my life. Like I cried my eyes out. Like I cried my eyes out. Like it was a dream of mine since I was 25 years old. Like I didn't want to say anything to anyone, but you threw it out there. I was like, you know what, man, I'm jumping in. I'm jumping in. And honestly, it's the freedom that really it brings you. It's the freedom to be able to go where you want. Like money is freedom tokens, right? Like it's not really about the status. Like clearly, you're keeping it low key with the hoodie. Like, no one has to know what Joey's doing when he's on the beach. And, I love that about crypto. There's a lot of humbleness to crypto. There's a lot of, because we all got our butt kicked. You know what I mean? I came into investing earlier. Like I got into, my first thing was I started buying gold and silver. I knew about, fiat currency going down the tubes 2010. I started buying gold and silver 2011. Then I eventually had 40 grand of it in a backpack in an apartment in Queens. And I was like, I didn't trust the vaults that you send them to. I didn't trust the banks and this, and then I eventually said, what do I do? Thank God I found Bitcoin. I realized I could memorize the seed phrase, and I started buying Bitcoin instead of gold. I did just buy $1,000 gold silver kilo because, it was just like kind of like that sentiment to have something physical last week. But I love cryptocurrency. I love Bitcoin. And I deep dive too, man. I want to bring up a coin that I just actually bought today. I want to ask you, but we'll wait to the end to see what your thoughts are. We like to bring people local topics, things that are happening today too, that are really coming. And so the first thing I want to discuss today that we're going to break down is New York Times article about Bitcoin mining, right? It seems like they created this article about Bitcoin mining. And when we look at it and deep dive what they're doing here, it looks like that, the article was written and it seemed to be kind of, the old Rupert Murdoch story, right? Like he said certain things have to be in the news at Fox. I saw this whole documentary called Outfoxed years ago. And you realize that from the top down, right, there's always kind of, they want you to say this. You have to include these things. This article was a little facetious, still respect to the reporters and all that. But what's your take on Bitcoin mining, the energy, and kind of what's happening with the, the green movement and Bitcoin? And, where do you see us going in the future with that controversy?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a touchy subject. Personally, if you really do the research on it, though, even today with, the electricity that's being used, it's like such a small fraction of all the electricity in the world. Like it's really overblown, in my opinion. But should we always be striving for greener, more renewable, better energy that we can use and mine? Absolutely, right? Now, the people that, don't understand maybe necessarily little nuanced details of like what Bitcoin mining is. Basically, in order for Bitcoin to function, they need to be able to, run these really, expensive and like machines and computers that can solve these really complex problems so that the network is secure, right? So that does, you look at other networks like Ethereum, which now went from proof of work to proof of stake. Will Bitcoin ever do something like that? That to me, I don't know if it ever will. And I don't think it will, to be honest. But if I'm being, I'm not a miner. I'm not like somebody who dives deep into the mining aspect of everything. But what I will say is that it is an important aspect. And the decentralization part of the mining, I think, is what's critical, right? Because you have all these different miners confirming everything from all over the world. That right there means that there's no just one centralized power that can like basically, screw up everything. So that to me, you talked about gold and the bank and, where do you put your money and like, what do you do? The Bitcoin system has been working pretty darn well and it's had some issues. Don't get me wrong. Like everything has, but for me and mining and what's going on with this whole thing, I think it's a little more overblown than what it is. We should strive to have it be as clean and green as possible. But, to me, I don't get into the technical aspects of it. And yeah, that's just kind of my take on this article as well.
Yeah, I was always a little weary when Ethereum went to proof of stake. I still, I'm old school, man. There's something about me, like, I didn't do Celsius. I never wanted to put my money places where I didn't trust it. You know what I mean? I always felt like you have what you have. Don't use credit cards. I barely use leverage. I'm just starting to trade leverage, and I honestly made most of my money, and I never touched leverage. So every time I see something going to where everyone's staking it, towards the old school where everyone's putting in the work, you know what I mean? That work. I'm all about that hard work. So I'm always a little weary of proof of stake as well. And also, like, I looked it up and I had a chart there. It said, all the industries that burn more electricity than Bitcoin, it's like washing machine, making washing machines, like lumber, and there's literally 10 industries in front of Bitcoin that you could regulate first if you really cared about that idea. You know what I mean? If that was such a big deal to you. So, yeah, it just it kind of bugs me out a little bit when I read the article, because I'm always like, that's a little weird, I love that take on it, and it makes sense. Would you ever actually prefer proof of stake, or is that just something that just doesn't make sense to you? And do you stake coins right now? And are you heavy into DeFi? And is that something that you also dabble into?
Yeah, so it's a really good question. I love proof of stake personally. I see both sides to this, though. Like, in everything in life, there's kind of like the yin and the yang, right? So proof of stake, while you can stake your crypto with validators and earn passive rewards, which I love that, there's also some security issues sometimes that can happen because of the centralization of all of that power. And again, there's like so many nuances that go into this, and we'll spare the audience here, and we'll try to keep it to a 5th grade level. But basically, that's the issue, right? Is with Ethereum per se, if all the validators or all the it would all be very centralized, well, then that wouldn't be very good for the end users. But then also too, having the proof of stake and being able to earn passive rewards, drives the token price up per se. It can, because people then take their token and it gives it a use case, and then they can earn passive rewards with it. I love that idea. So I love the idea of the passive income model with dividends in stocks. Crypto is as well. I try to stake everything that I can, and I have a variety of different coins that I am staking. And the reason why I love that is because I can earn that passive income, and then that provides the lifestyle. So if I have a principal, let's say like of 1,000 Ethereum, and then I'm earning, let's say 10 Ethereum a year, I mean, that's thousands of dollars in passive income. I can go spend that and do whatever I want, and then also just get the appreciation of Ethereum, over the long run. And that way I'm not stressed out. I'm not stressed out as much as it is with the hair, trying to trade this stuff and move in and out of the market. That's not my game. My game is just patience, wait it out, and then also try to earn while I'm sleeping. I love this idea of earn while you sleep. And you can do this in crypto, but you have to educate yourself, because different coins have different lockup periods. They have, different ways that you can actually stake. It is a whole education, and that's what we're here to do, right? So in my programs and in my classes and in my videos, this is exactly what I teach, because I know how to do this, because I've spent the time doing it, and I've seen the rewards for doing it as well. So I am a big fan of staking, or mining now is what they're calling it. So, I mean, whatever you want to call it, I love it, because, I've earned tens of thousands of dollars now, like literally just holding onto my money. And in the bull market, that compounds into hundreds of thousands and potentially millions down the road. And you have to think about this, because if you're a small player, it may not, affect you a whole lot. But if you have like tens of millions of dollars, or even millions of dollars, or hundreds of millions of dollars, 5 or 10% on that is millions of more dollars. And so, that's something that you really do need to think about as an investor. And ultimately, what I'm describing is a strategy. You need a strategy for yourself. If you're a trader, be a trader. If you're a long-term holder and an investor, be a long-term holder and investor. Or if you want to do some of both, do some of both. I'd like to do some of both myself. So, but yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with the staking. And it's a great question, and I appreciate you letting me share.
Yeah, no, I'm all about the rule of thirds. You know what I mean? Like 30 or 33, 33. I love the 33, but like, if you gave me 100 grand, right? I would put 33% in Bitcoin, XRP, Ethereum, and most of it probably in Bitcoin, right? And then the other 30, I would keep to swing trade to get into certain projects, right? Get into like Casper just went up huge in the last couple of weeks, you know? Some coins have 10x. AGIX is 10x since the end of October into November, right? So, and that could have turned 10 grand into 100 grand, 100 grand into $1 million, right? So I like to have some liquidity. And then the other third, I like to go into the deep dive, you know, like, I bought a decentralized coin today that I believe is going to hit the dexes. We're going to bring it up at the end of the stream. If you guys want to know the coin, I can't wait to ask him if he knows about it or what's happening with it. So I'm super excited. This brings me to Ethereum, right? And Ethereum price prediction. ETH will rally 3,000 on the Shanghai upgrade. And even today, we have a Shapella update going on, right? So with that happening, you know, and you obviously know a lot about Ethereum. I don't know if it was the first coin you staked, but it's like the solid most, you know, it gives you the solid returns. You know, it's not going to go down, like unlikely to go back to like $300 in my humble opinion, although we never know, anything can happen. But to me, it looks like it's ready to go. It looks like it's planning its move for a bigger idea. What is your idea on Ethereum? Are we going to go to 3,000? How are you about price predictions? And, you know, do you have any plans to ever sell some of the ETH, or is ETH something you're just going to hold and just continue to take those rewards?
Yeah, so I'm super bullish on Ethereum. Honestly, I don't really hold any Bitcoin, like a very, very small amount. The rest of it's Ethereum. And the reason why is because I believe that Ethereum will outperform Bitcoin. And while it is riskier, it's not that much more of a risk in my opinion. And so I'm willing to hold it. Now, here's why I'm really bullish on Ethereum though. If you go to a website called Ultrasound Money, you can see since the merge, literally, which was like, I don't know, 200-300 days ago, Ethereum has been deflationary up to like 80,000 Ethereum, which is, I don't know, millions of dollars. It's a lot. Okay. So, and we're not even in the thick of things yet, I don't believe. And I think that what's going to happen is we're going to see in the next year or two, you know, after the halving, we typically see if you follow the 4-year cycle, we kind of get like a little run up here, which is what I think maybe 3,000 could be in the cards in the next couple of months, certainly. And then right before the halving, it's kind of like this buy the rumor, sell the news thing, right? It's like, oh, the halving's coming. So people like to do that. They like to front run it and then they like to sell it. Don't know if that will happen or not, but like that's just kind of like behavior we've seen in the past. So I wouldn't be surprised to see ETH go up to, 3,000, 3,500, then crash back down to like 1,800, 1,500. You know what I mean? Like you got to be able to see both sides of the coin here and, literally and figuratively, right? Like understand that it can go up and it can also go down. So you have to prepare for both of those situations. And just because we sit here and we've been in the market and we've seen these things happen and we have a better indicator just from that experience, we have no idea either, truthfully, right? It's like anything can happen. And so my thinking though is that, look, there's so much more that's going to be built on Ethereum. There are, all these layer 2s coming to help Ethereum scale. There's all this, Ethereum being burned now because every single time you make a transaction or do something, even if you make a swap, this ETH is getting burned. And if you just look at really the overall tokenomics now of Ethereum, it's supply and demand. If you got more people that want to buy it and there's less going around because of when, it's being burned, that typically makes the price go up, right? So for me, I've done the research. I've seen people locking this cryptocurrency up, not only to stake it to earn rewards, but also in DeFi, because if you have a brand new cryptocurrency project, a lot of them who are building on Ethereum pair it with Ethereum, right? Because then they can trade in and out of ETH. There's one project that like locked, I don't even know, is like a lot of Ethereum. It's just sitting there forever. Like it's just so crazy that it's like it's never going anywhere. So you have that multiplied by the demand, the deflation. To me, Ethereum is a no-brainer in my opinion, and is one of my certainly bigger holdings at this point. So what do you think about Ethereum though overall, and what are your takes?
Thank you for that question. It's funny. It's like I'm more of a Bitcoin guy, and it's funny as you said that. I'm like, it's like I just get weary of the fact that they could go after Vitalik or something could happen or regulatory things, and so I like to keep my money in more of in Bitcoin just because I believe Bitcoin just is untouchable, right? I also believe whether we have ETH or Bitcoin, Ethereum was the first coin I ever bought. I'm out selling drones 2015, I believe. A guy walks down the street in like a shirt, and I thought I kind of knew what Bitcoin was. I think he had a Bitcoin shirt on, and he said I was one of the coders, head coders on Ethereum. He whips out his phone, and he shows me it at $9. And he's like, this is going to be big. I'd advise you buy a lot of this, right? And it went to 89, and I didn't buy any. And I was like, man, that was my first time like kicking myself in cryptocurrency. I was like, man, I could have 10x from what that guy told me in the street, I began to buy a lot of it at 179. I would unload at 350, I remember. But it was one of my first coins. Now I only hold about 20 ETH, you know. I don't hold a big old bag of it. But I also believe that we're going to be able to put it down as a collateralization. I was sitting with an older man than me the other day. I mentor people, and at the end of the mentorship, they mentor me, right? Because we'll teach people about cryptocurrency, but some of the people I mentor are like far more, you know, they're successful businessmen that know how to manage money. They just wanted to learn more about crypto, right? And he said, Sam, you know, we're going to keep stacking this Bitcoin, and we're going to be able to put it down as collateral, and we're going to be able to borrow against it, and we're going to be able to buy properties 10 years from now. Like, people think they're going to have to sell your cryptocurrency, and you won't. Like, you're going to be able to use it as collateralization on a loan or something like that. So like, if we just keep stacking, like, we're destined to be paid for the rest of our lives. Like, and the banks, they're going to look at someone who they always look at insurance, right? They look at your up and down. They look at your risk. Someone who already got into ETH early may have seen risky now. 5-10 years from now, I think you're going to be the lowest risk person, because they're like, wow, intelligent individual, disciplined with their money, made some smart moves, and, you know, got themselves to a place where, hey, we might want to ride the train with Joey Parys. You know what I mean? That might be a good person that we would want to collateralize a loan with, because he seems to have been doing pretty well for the last 10 years. So, yeah, I'm not as heavy on ETH as most people. They kind of find that funny when I say that, considering I found it so early. You know what I mean? Maybe there's like a little thorn on my side over it sometimes. But, yeah, I just feel a little more comfortable with Bitcoin. But I do love Ethereum, and I love the ecosystem. I also found Uniswap early, right? I got the airdrop, so I was on there really early. And I saw how high the fees were, and the fees just, you know, they kind of threw me for a loop. And then I went into Cake. I'm kind of known as the Cake dude. I got into Cake at 60 cents. I threw $1,800. It turned into over 136,000, and it was staking for $1,000 a day. Like, I couldn't believe that an investment like 6 months prior of $1,800 was paying me $1,000 a day. Like, that's just like mind blowing in DeFi. And like, I think you've taken my story to like a whole nother level. So like, I feel like I'm just a beginner. I'm like an elementary school kid when it comes to the Parys way, but that really has changed me forever, you know? And the fees on BNB were so small and so much lighter, and that gave me I was like, eh. Even the other day, I went to buy a coin. It was going to be $6 in fees on ETH. It was going to be 39 cents on BNB. Same coin, I just changed the address, right? And I changed chain. So I'm also worried about EIJ 1559 and the blockage. And I just see Ethereum fees going up. And I feel like it's still going to be a rich man's game in DeFi. And if you can't pay $100 for an NFT free, like, you may get priced out of a transaction. I could be wrong. Let's hope they find a way to bring that down. That's my cautionary reason for why I back out of ETH a little bit. And I'm more into I'm actually dabbling into some dApps on Bitcoin recently. And we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about that later. But thank you. That was a great question. I really appreciate you throwing questions at me too, because I really like it makes me think and kind of come up with, you know what, you're right. And kind of go through my memory and my Rolodex of kind of the journey that I went on in cryptocurrency, because it's an amazing journey. Like, your story inspires me beyond belief, because I know that anyone that wants to end up wherever they want to end up will get there. Like, if this is your desire, if this is where you want to be, you're going to get there. You know, the only people that don't get there are the people that don't give up. The people that do give up, you know what I mean? So like, as long as you keep moving, you stay disciplined, you push fear, right? Fake emotions acting real. You don't get into worry. You stay in the present moment. You're going to be fine. And everyone listening out here, like, you're going to be sitting on the beach just like Joey. It's only a matter of time. You just have to stick with a plan, and also get the education, you know, learn from Joey, learn from me, learn from all over the internet. There's people who have done it before. They've proven it. And they have a system in which they're able to teach. You know what I mean? And that's what I always really like about Joey too, is you can see the proof is in the pudding. That's why he's on the channel, and that's why I consider him a crypto lifer. Next topic that I want to dive into and talk about here is Fidelity, you know, and Bank of America. They're gaining exposure through MicroStrategy. It's funny. It seems like everybody was laughing at Michael Saylor as he bought bags and bags of bags at 29,000, and that we would go back down. But we all knew that he had more. And then there was the idea that he was going to get liquidated. Did you ever think he was going to get liquidated and have to come out for that call and get taken down? What's your thoughts on Michael Saylor? Have you been following before? And does this excite you, seeing Fidelity and Bank of America, who are sometimes kind of, you know, we've heard in the background, have been a little bit of anti-crypto, right? What's your take on this? I'm excited about it. I think it's an awesome article.
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting what, you know, Fidelity and Bank of America are doing. And you know, they're kind of forced to do it because, you know, there's not an ETF right now where you can buy, you know, but they can go get exposure, should I say, to Bitcoin. So the way that they're getting exposure to Bitcoin is through MicroStrategy, because MicroStrategy is really, really heavy in Bitcoin, right? And I will say this about Michael Saylor. I've been to the Bitcoin conference the last few years, and I've got to meet him. He's a great guy. And I really, really do like his mentality and how much conviction he has with Bitcoin. He hasn't wavered at all. And I think that is very, very powerful for people who are just watching this and going, well, I don't know, Bitcoin's down today, or it's up today, I'm excited. He doesn't care. He's like, I'm going to buy it at 50,000, 100,000. It doesn't matter to him. He just wants to accumulate. And I think he has like billions of dollars now worth of Bitcoin. I think they're the #1 holder of Bitcoin, which is pretty insane. And that tells you something, right? And his mentality too, why I actually do like the guy. He don't want to sell this stuff. Like you talked about, he just wants to collateralize it and then use that money. And he's like, look, this is digital real estate, right? Would you want to sell, the best property, in New York City? No, you wouldn't. You want to sit on it and then just collect when people kept coming to your property, right? So that's what he wants to do. And that's his whole mindset. I'm going to buy it. I'm going to hold it. And he's not a short-term investor. He's like 10 years is like minimum, right? And I think if anyone can, understand what we're saying here is have a longer time horizon. Get in the market today if you're new, like learn, but also like if you want to be a crypto millionaire, like we've been doing this for a while, okay? Like a long while. And we've gone through the bumps and bruises, the bull markets, the bear markets. Like this didn't just happen overnight. You don't just end up in Puerto Rico on a beach, because you threw $1,800 at one coin. You did that with cake and you made, 100 grand, but that ain't gonna change your life forever, right? Mm-hmm. That can get you a start. And just like, my 10,000 into 200, that got me a start. But from there, I had to work at this every single day. I make 2 or 3 videos every day. Like we're here creating content for you guys, truly. Like I don't need to do this. You know what I mean? I don't need, the amount of money and passive income I'm earning from staking and crypto. I never need to work another day in my life. I'm blessed enough to say that. And that's the truth of the matter. We're doing this because we want to help. Because I know what it's like to lose my, rear end in the first year. It stings, man. It's no fun. But my take on, what's happening in the markets, people are getting smarter. Bitcoin, ain't going anywhere anytime soon, I don't believe. And I think that, Michael Saylor has just recognized it. He's public about it, and he has conviction. And you know what? I root for that. I root for somebody who goes up and down, left and right. Doesn't matter what Bitcoin's doing. I'm here. I'm buying this, good luck taking it from me. And that's that. And you know what? I think he's going to be handsomely rewarded in the future at some point. And yeah, we'll just see what happens. But, what is your whole take on this whole, Bank of America, Michael Saylor, thing? And I know you're a big Bitcoin guy. So I'd love to hear, your outlook on this.
Thank you so much, Joey. You took the words right out of my mouth. I mean, like I do what he does. I don't care what prices I got Bitcoin at. I'm very good at timing markets. I'll tell you that. Like I bought Bitcoin at 3,000. I bought Bitcoin during that pandemic dump at 3,800. I used the 2-week stochastic with the fear and greed index. It's almost like a no-brainer. And you only have 4 instances where that was that low in the last 10 years. You know what I mean? So like, and I look for bullish divergence on the weekly, which you get like once every 7 years if you're lucky. And we had a major one. I've been saying Bitcoin had bottomed, 95% chance Bitcoin has bottomed due to that idea. And some other things I'm looking at too. Gaussian channel 8-day, like we never get back into the zone. We're going to get through the side, the middle piece. There's so many things to look at. I accumulate Bitcoin. I know in the long run, it's going $200,000, $300,000, $400,000. Again, I come from history, right? Studying fiat currencies. And I know that they're going to keep printing them. That's all they do. I understand how central banks are made. I understand exactly how the open market system works. They make a bond, they sell it to the central banks, our debt. They get to sell that bond back to the Federal Reserve. It keeps a stack of money at the U.S. Treasury and a stack of bonds over at the Federal Reserve. What does that mean? They're propagating funds. And then when that money goes into the government, they then give it to workers in the government, post workers, war, right? The army. And that money goes into their pockets. And where do they bring it? Back to the bank, who then fractionally reserves the same money over and over again. It is an insane printing press. Even if they didn't print the money, people don't realize they were already fractional reserving our money behind your back. So even if they didn't do all these bailouts, they were still going to devalue your dollar every single day behind your back, and nobody cares. So I figured, you know what? Safest asset I can be in, Bitcoin. Buy as much of it as I can constantly. 3,000 here, 5,000 there. And anytime it was under 20K, I said, man, this is a steal. I have to get my hands on as extremely as much as I humanly can. And like you say, everyone's like, when are you going to sell Bitcoin? I'm like, you don't sell Bitcoin. Like if you understand Bitcoin, you don't sell Bitcoin. You know what I mean? It's just not even in the cards for me. Like that's not happening. Like you said, it's real estate. It's Park Avenue. If you ever played Monopoly, like there's only two park. It's Boardwalk, man. There's not going to be enough. The halving's coming in a year, right? And the block rewards are going to go to 6.25. 4 years from now, they're going to be 3.12. Dude, in 2032, you're talking a one Bitcoin block reward. Dude, that's like a little over one. And just the other day, it was at 1,000, right? Or not 1,000, but 12.5 per block. But per day, they say it's about 650 a day after the halving, right? Right now, it's like maybe 1,200 a day or something. So the idea that this is going to continue to get scarce, we know they're going to keep printing money. To me, it's 8-year-old math. Like, I don't have to be a genius. Like, the weirdest thing is a lot of the simplest things for people are the hardest for them to understand. They want to create a complex version of how it's supposed to be, and you're just like, no, you don't have to do that. It can be actually as simple as they're going to print this. This is going to get scarce. People think it's funny money. You know what I mean? I even have my own family. Like, I got my older sister to buy, but other people in my family did not buy Bitcoin, and they still think, I'm like a pirate, like swinging from the high seas and just, just kind of, doing something a little risky. And I'm trying to explain to them, like, I'd rather own one Bitcoin and not need it I'd rather have one Bitcoin and not need it than need one Bitcoin and not have it. Like, that's something I always talk about. I always bring up. It's the lifeboat. I love Michael Saylor. Whenever I interview him, he's like, the Titanic's sinking. Wait, you're gonna pick a different thing? You're gonna jump on? No, you're gonna get on the lifeboat. There's only one lifeboat. You don't ask which lifeboat you get on. You don't diversify, because people are like, why are you diversifying? He's like, you don't diversify. It's Bitcoin. Like, it's Bitcoin. That's it. And it's like, I mean, when he said that one day, he hit me. It was like 2 to 3 years ago, and I was like, it's the lifeboat, man. Like, you don't choose, like, no, I'm gonna get on that lifeboat. No. You get on the lifeboat when the ship is sinking, right? And people see the ship sinking a long time ago. When I figured out inflation in 2010 and 11, and I was buying the gold bars, that was the beginning of my mind figuring out, oh, we're on a ship that is going to sink. I better get myself off of it as soon as humanly possible and find out where this ship can lead me, right, to the new land, right? And I feel like you and me are like Christopher Columbus going off into a new place. And, you got the wind blowing and the trees there on that island. It kind of reminds me of being a sailor out there on the ocean. So, one thing I want to
I mean, look, you make some amazing points. I wanted to jump in really quickly.
Please.
And you make some really good points that I think that I just want to re-emphasize. The third grade math, right? And then also the jumping into the one coin or the one boat, right? If the Titanic is sinking. And I think that if there's anything that I've learned in this market, where people make mistakes and where I've made this mistakes the most is, number one, not sticking with the market long enough. Like, I remember I jumped out of the boat, right? And I was like, all right, I'm off this boat. I'm out of crypto. See you later. I'm just going to go do something else. And I built my business up, and like, I was productive, so it was good. And then I came back in 2020, and I haven't missed a single day since I came back. And I learned my lesson. I'm like, I ain't missing this, right? I've seen what's happened. I've gone through it. I've made the mistakes. Stick with it. But also, too, the thing that's really important is that people get, they have a hard time doing the little things every single day. It's like that one brick that you build perfectly every day that ends up, then you have the wall. They want the wall today. It's like, you're not going to get the wall today, right? And that's where, if you can be patient and if you can put in your time, that's when the market will ultimately come to you, right? People are trying to force it a lot of the times, like, I don't know what to do, this or that. It's like, let it come to you. Sit back, let it come to you, relax a little bit, and learn. And then one other thing too, that I think is really important for people to understand. And, I'm going to go against you a little bit here on Bitcoin. And here's why. Bitcoin today, while I think it's still very undervalued, and it could certainly go to $1 million, for the average retail investor, you're probably not going to get super rich just DCAing into Bitcoin. And, 5 years from now, maybe you'll triple, quadruple your money. And, it's probably a better bet than a lot of other assets, certainly. But this is why I get into the higher risk, higher reward crypto coins, because if you, study these markets as much as we do, you're willing to take a little bit more of that risk on so that you can get a little bit more of that reward. And I ended up in Puerto Rico, not because of Bitcoin, but because I took a little bit more risk. and I ended up finding the right altcoin at the right time and educating myself. And so to me, it's like, if you want that lifestyle, if you want to change your life, crypto can do it. And I do think that you can have your cake and eat it too. You can have some Bitcoin exposure. You can have that long run mentality. And then also you can be a little, degen and have some fun as well and take a little bit of those higher risks. That's currently what I'm doing. And just wanted to share that. But, we've definitely been at it here, man. I know that, we're getting towards the end of the show. So is there anything else that, you'd like to dive into for the viewers? Because I've had a blast, and I'm very grateful to be here.
Yeah, no, I own over 400 cryptocurrencies, so I am, believe you me, like, I'll grab a $7 million market cap coin, and I've seen amazing things happen. I was able to 20x Phantom. I was able to 50x, Cardano. I got a Cardano at 2 cents. I mean, that like changed my entire life. Even more than 50x, really, because when it got to $3, it was out of control. But so I've, multiple after multiple. I even threw into SafeMoon. $2,800 turned into another $250,000. It was insane. Like, and I did it live on my channel. I cried the day because I had never 100x before, and I was like, oh my God, like I 100x, like, and I almost like fell down. I wanted to ask you one quick thing. A new coin that I'm looking at called Alex. I just literally bought it today. I was looking at it. It's a decentralized application, built on Bitcoin, right? Or built on Stacks, which is built on Bitcoin. It's like, and so to me, it's sitting at a very small market cap, right? 119 or $45 million market cap. It's 11 cents. And you may not know about it or have heard about it. Maybe you have. I just started learning about it in the last 2-3 weeks. I finally did my deep dive, and I finally decided to dabble. I'm definitely probably going to take one of your courses, man, and get it whenever I have time, because I know that the more I learn, the more I'm going to exceed my net worth, and I want to get to the 100 million. I believe I can become a billionaire. I really do. And I don't mean to say that and hurt anyone's feelings. I just think, why shoot for a low place? Like, billionaire status. Like, I believe, and by the time we get to become a billionaire, because I believe if I can get there, you're probably going to get there. The idea is, it probably won't even be worth as much as the $1 billion is now due to the way they're printing money, right? So I figure set yourselves high, go all the way to the moon. You know what I mean? And I always say you can make 10 bill, give away 9, and leave 1 to your kids. You know what I mean? And you can change the world. I'm about changing the world and having a legacy. My mom told me I called you Samuel Price after Samuel Clemens, right? And I said, wow, why do I know who he is? And I Wikipedia'd him and I Googled him. He's dead, long-term dead, still having an indelible mark on my life, still making me think, man, that's someone I would love to, I would like to be able to create a legacy in that nature. So I fell in love with legacy when I was like 9, 10, 12 years old. And I realized, money is just a part, it's just a part of a legacy. Like, if you want to be remembered before you die, like, give away as much as you could to people, right? Spread as much love as you can to people. And I always say love is the answer, man. Like, when you live in love, it's the strongest frequency you could ever use. I use the word love like probably 20 times an hour if I can, and I want to smile. I want to stay positive. That's another reason I love you on the channel. We've been on around the blockchain, and just the conscious way in which I hear your language has also imprinted on me. Saying thank you after every question, always giving a moment. Just your level of insight and consciousness is just, it shows, man, wherever you go. So I'm so blessed to have you here today, man. Like, I'm so honored, and I am a little long-winded, but yeah, do you know about Alex and, and the other coins that you're looking at that you want to drop on our audience before you leave? And I'm going to be out with this one, and you're going to take it. And Joey, thank you so much for coming here today. And tell them where to find you, tell them what you do again, if you want, and just any last minute pieces of information that you can tell the viewers.
Well, thank you for having me. Genuinely. I mean, it's just a blessing to be here, like you said. And, we don't take this for granted. I wake up every day and I'm excited to, get to work, and I enjoy it, right? Like, not because I have to, but because I enjoy, genuinely doing it. And I think we were able to come together here today because we see eye to eye on a lot of those things. When it comes to Alex, to answer the question, I've actually never really heard about this project. So, I have some more research to do, but looking at the chart, it's doing phenomenal right now. It is definitely a little bit of a smaller micro cap coin, not super, super small. I mean, it's at 50 million right now. You said 45 million. I think the idea is interesting, but to me, building on top of, Bitcoin, it's going to be interesting to see if that actually really takes off, because it says, bringing Bitcoin to life here, launching new projects, earn interest, if they're able to develop. See, this is the thing. All these projects, they have a lot of great ideas, and on paper and everything that I'm seeing, it looks fantastic, but I don't know the details of the team. I don't know the details of, the tokenomics yet. So I can't really share much insight on this project specifically, but I will give the viewers one more bonus here. So those are the things that I would look at. And from what I'm seeing so far, it looks decent. One project that, I really, really like that's been fair, and that's what I really do stand behind in fairness. And there's a million other projects I could talk about, but it's called Zen Crypto. And anyone today, anyone today can mint this cryptocurrency on a variety of different blockchains. You could pay fractions of a penny depending upon what blockchain you want, and you can get involved with this community. And I'm not here to promote it at all. I'm just looking at this as an investor myself. I have invested in it. I've minted it. I've bought some of it, and it's paid me back multiple times. The founder was Google's 21st employee, Jack Levin. I did an interview with him. It's a fantastic human being. That to me is what I'm looking for within crypto. And I think that those principles, the fair principles, are what's missing in a lot of these projects. You hear a lot of these projects, especially the little altcoins that, say that they're going to promise something and then they run away. I don't see that happening with this Zen one. Maybe, I don't think Jack's going to pull a fast one on us, to be honest. But, I've just seen the development. There's a bunch of projects that are building on top of Zen now. There's supposed to be a layer 1 coming. It's a lot of things with this project that I personally, as an investor, am liking for sure. So if there's anything to look at, maybe that one for your audience for sure. And to wrap things up, make sure to smash the like button, click that subscribe button, and hit the notification bell, because we're going to be back and we make videos every single day. And I again just really appreciate Life for being here. And click those links down below if you want to follow each and every one of us. And I look forward to potentially being back on the channel soon. So thanks again, and we'll leave it there.